Everyone. This is Module 10, Lesson 11, and today we're going to be talking about inferences. Today's reading focus is on referring to the text. So we're going to look at the specific details in the text that help to explain the subject, and then also what can we as readers learn through inferring from this text. So our learning target today is I can refer to the text when I explain what it says explicitly and what I can infer. Today we're going to start reading a realistic fiction selection called Cooper's Lesson, and it's written by Sun-Young Shin. When you read stories, it's important to look for meaning beyond what's specifically stated in the text. What do we mean by that? Well, we actually have to look for clues along with the text to fill in what the author leaves out. And this strategy is called making an inference. Making inferences based on what the text says, what pictures show, and your own previous knowledge gives you a deeper understanding of the text. Now, making an inference is a little bit different than making a wild guess. When you make a wild guess, you're not really using any background information or evidence, but when you make an inference, you combine those things together. Sometimes in a text, information is directly stated. So when information is directly stated in a text, this is called explicit information. And that would be an example, a sentence that said, John was angry. The text is directly telling you, so that's explicit information. But other times authors imply information, and as a reader, you have to infer to find the new meaning for the text. So let's take a look at making an inference. Now, it's important to remember that authors may not tell you everything explicitly in a text, and then it's your job to make an inference to fill in the holes. So when you're filling in these holes, you use clues from the text plus what you already know. So for example, if you have a book and it's about plants, that would be your text evidence. Anything that is directly stated in the book is the text evidence. Then you combine that with what you already know. That's called your background knowledge. So for example, you might think to yourself, I know that flowers need water to grow. And that would allow you to make an inference and come to a new understanding of the text. So let's look at some examples of inferences as we read Cooper's lesson. Before we start, Cooper's lesson, as a reminder, it's realistic fiction. So some of the characteristics of realistic fiction, these are stories about characters and events that are made up, but they could actually happen in the real world. And the story is told through the plot or the main events of the story. In realistic fiction, characters may use anecdotes. Anecdotes are short stories of something interesting or funny, and this is a way for the author to introduce you as the reader to something that's happened to the characters in the past. And then the last little bit of a reminder about realistic fiction is that sometimes they include a theme or a lesson that's learned by the main character. So let's see if we can make some inferences about this story based on the cover. Here's Cooper's lesson, and I'm going to highlight the title and then this picture of the boy who I am going to infer is Cooper based on the fact that this is a book about Cooper's lesson. So based on the title and the picture, I can infer that the story is going to be about this boy named Cooper and that I think he's going to learn some kind of a lesson because that's the title of the story. Also, judging by Cooper's expression on the cover, I can infer that he's not very happy about something, so maybe the lesson he learns is hard for him. That's using my background knowledge. I can look at his face and know that in a time where I felt like I wasn't really happy about something, I might have had the same expression as Cooper. So now we're going to read starting at paragraph 1. Follow along with me. Cooper's pocket felt heavy with his allowance. He leashed his dog, Katso, and laced his shoes. Be home by dinner time, called Cooper's dad. Cooper, exclaimed his mom, could you pick up some ginger at Mr. Lee's store? Kamashaminda. Cooper sighed. His mom always insisted on speaking only Korean to Mr. Lee, even though Cooper could barely follow along. Once Mr. Lee had scolded him in Korean for not speaking Korean. Since then, Cooper felt funny every time he walked past the old man's store. So I'm going to stop. And at the beginning of this paragraph, it says that Cooper sighed. And he sighs after his mother asks him to pick up some ginger at the store. So based on the evidence in the text and what I know personally, I can infer that he feels uneasy about going to the store for his mother. And now I'm going to keep reading paragraph 5. Sure, Mom, Cooper called over his shoulder as he and Catso began their walk through the neighborhood. A poster hung in the window of Mr. Lee's grocery store for a new Taekwondo gym in the neighborhood. Both kids on the poster had black hair and yellow-brown skin. Cooper studied his reflection in the window. Brown hair and some freckles. Grandmother Park always said, such white skin. And Grandmother Daly always said, what brown skin? One cousin always teased him about being half and half. Cooper frowned. So let's look at the start of paragraph 8 where it says Cooper frowned. Now, he has just been looking at his reflection, and then he's remembering how his family members talk about the color of his skin, and then he frowns. So based on the evidence that I read and Cooper's reaction, I can infer that he's feeling sad about the way that his family talks about him and teases him. In the window, the stacked packages of powdered insom and bars of soap wrapped in red and white paper made a perfect miniature skyline. He tied Catso's leash to a no parking sign and went inside. Inside, families filled the aisles, laughing and smiling. Mothers picked up vegetables to carefully inspect their leaves and roots or gently squeeze round sweet melons. Fathers examined the fish in the tank, searching out the largest and liveliest. Okay, so now I've come to the end of this page, and you can also use inferences to make predictions. So based on what I read and the inferences I made, Cooper's not really feeling so great. He's not really happy about going to the store. He's like kind of feeling a little bit self-conscious about himself. And then when he goes into the store, he sees all of these families smiling and laughing. So I'm going to use my inferencing skills to predict that something's going to happen in the store, and this is going to be where Cooper learns his lesson. So hopefully we will be able to keep reading and confirm that prediction today. So as you read today, you are going to use the text evidence combined with your own background knowledge to make inferences. And then you're going to use that strategy to answer the following questions. So the first question is, why does Cooper feel out of place in Mr. Lee's store? And then you are going to use the details in the text to show why Cooper decided to take the hairbrush. And then lastly, what does Cooper learn from Mr. Lee? So remember that when you're making an inference, you use the text evidence and then think about how the character is behaving and reacting, and that will help you to come to an understanding and make an inference or draw a conclusion about the text. That is all for today on making inferences. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you soon.